thanks very much for everybody coming along. I gather it's quite miserable outside, so we'll try and keep it sort of warm and fuzzy in here. The last year when we did this one, it was, you know, it's difficult because of the fact that everybody sails on slightly different boats. Whether it's a small boat or a big boat, a lot of crew, not a lot of crew, an asymmetric spinnaker, you know, with only a bowsprit, an asymmetric spinnaker with a pole, or just a traditional old-style symmetric spinnaker with a pole. So, how many people here sail big boats with more than 5 crew? Oh, fantastic! It's going to be really easy. Not that I mean to leave out people who are sailing other types of boats. What other types of boats do people sail? If anybody here is a laser sailor, then the crew work thing is going to be slightly unhelpful. So we've got a couple of magic sailors for sure. So good luck in the Love Boat Trophy this weekend. Not. How about J80? We've got some J80 sailors? Yes, we do. Okay. Right. Well. Yeah, a couple of extra sailors with a mast, which is good. We'll do the keeping up the mast bit video later on. Okay, so as you know, on the laptop we've got loads of stuff, and on YouTube, of course, there's any amount of stuff that we can drag up at any time. But as a sort of vague sense of shape, we'll kick off with the sort of important parts of crew work generally are when you're turning the corners, the sort of steady state going on in a line bit. I guess we can probably all figure out, or get advice from our friendly driver about. And then we also have very specific documents which provide information about everybody's individual job. So, for the guy on the bow, the overview of the job, the preparation before the race. Of course, if you've ever been a bowman, you'll know that means do everything, because it's going to be called your fault if it doesn't work anyway. What you do pre-start on the water, what you do going upwind, what you're doing at the windward mark for a bearway set, or a tack set, or a jibe set, and then downwind, for dip pole jibes, end for end jibes, and then the leeward mark, and then some tricks of the trade. So we've got that for for bow, for main trimmer, headsail trimmer, mast, etc. And then we've got a bunch of sort of tips and playbooks as we go along. I don't really plan to go through these in enormous detail tonight, but we'll stick them on the web, right, like usual, so you can just download them after that. So, sit here by the laptop, which is I'm trying. Yeah, all right. Okay. So the key, first of all, the key thing in terms of preparing, is to assign the positions. For what everybody is going to be doing on board. I know certainly I find it all too easy to just naturally assume that people are going to slot into a particular position. But given how difficult it is to keep a constant crew on your boat here in Hong Kong, with everybody being, doing a lot of travelling, when everybody does come on board, do try and assign the positions as clearly as possible. And if you can do that during the week, so that people have a bit of an idea as to what they're going to be doing, that's going to really help out. Excuse me. In terms of the comms on board, the communications on board, it's really helpful to clarify who's going to make the calls. In general, the simplest way of operating this is that whoever is the tactician is going to be the person who decides on the required maneuver. So in other words, he'll be, as you go up the beat, he'll probably be able to get a gauge of whether you're going to be coming in port ley line or starboard ley line, and that of course will determine whether or not you're going to be doing a bearway set or having to tack around the mark and then set the spinnaker. So in terms of deciding exactly what maneuver you're going to be doing, the tactician is probably the right guy for that. That doesn't mean that he's the guy who has to tell everybody what to do, right? It may be that you have a person somewhere on maybe main sheet or in the middle of the boat who's actually a more practical kind of person, who understands better how the jobs work and how it all fits together. So that person, being the crew boss, you know, initially demands the decision from the tactician and then gives the commands, you know, to the crew. Do spend time as much as you can talking through the role of new people and how they're going to fit in, and then brief the team on the expected conditions, the places to put crew weight, you know, those how far forward, how far back, you know, how quickly you want the weight up after tacks in general, that sort of stuff. Tell them what the course is as much as possible, with special focus on key maneuvers. You know, if you're racing in the harbour here, for example, you know, with an outgoing tide, very often you'll discover, you know, when you come around the top mark that you're wanting to quickly jibe to get into the wall, you know, to get out of the tide, or you're going to be sailing very hot, and these are really key tactical moments during the race. When you come down for the first rounding, if there's a foul tide, right, a tide coming in the harbour, when you come down for your first rounding at dock buoy, right, on a standard Saturday afternoon, you know, you've got to do a really good draw as late as humanly possible, because if you're the guy who's leading a little group of boats away from that bottom mark as opposed to having to throw a couple of tacks, it's a massive advantage. So there's huge premium and leverage on those particular maneuvers, and if you can make sure that people understand that beforehand so that they spend a little bit of extra time figuring out exactly how they're going to do their job, the crew work will be a lot slicker. Also important to be alert to what the goals are for the day. So let's win the race. Okay, great idea. Let's survive the race, you know, as in like just so long as we finish without any damage, that'll be good. Or let's make sure we beat, you know, whoever is your key rival, that sort of thing, because that will help people have a focus of what you're trying to achieve, rather than just some sort of aimless cruising company where at the end of it you count up how many were in front of you. And then there's preparing the boat. Marks on everything. We'll give some specifics later on, and you know, obviously this is very, very important specifically for the person who's going to be right in the middle of the boat, primarily the pit guy, okay? Because he's the guy who controls most of the up and down ropes, so the marks on that to make your life easy are important. So we've got a great presentation that Simon Pickering, who's a great pit guy, put together for last year, and it'll be on the web as well, and we'll run through it a bit later on. So basically we've got marks on all the sheets, on the guys, the halyards, the topping lift, the pole downhaul, the vang, the outhaul, the tack line, the Cunningham, the right, everything. And then if you're sailing on a big boat which has got a lot of sails, it's always a good idea to try and line the sails up downstairs in the order that they're likely to be used. Okay, so you know, if it looks like light air, then you know, probably best to have the light air kite on the top of the pile of spinnakers, right? And your J1, you know, your light air jib, you know, on top of the number 3 jib, you know, sort of thing, so you don't have to go clambering through. And then set up the spinnaker gear on the correct side for the first hoist, which of course you'll have a good idea about because the tactician or the skipper will have briefed you on what the course is and what the expected first maneuver is. Okay? And you can set it up with the guy and the sheet in the beak. And then normally when the boat is sailing along, it's only this is for boats with poles, there's only the guy in the beak of the pole normally, the sheet's on top. But for the first hoist, put both the sheet and the guy in the beak. It's a right, nice simple tip. And then obviously demand, as if you're a crew member, you know, don't let the tactician and the driver just stand at the back looking at the sails and smoking. You know, do say to them, hey, it'd be great if we could do a set, you know, or something like that. You know, so take the initiative to make sure that you're as revved up as all the other people on the boat. Thank you very much for not laughing out loud when this was displayed, unlike last year. The idea here is that depending where you sit on the boat, you can see different parts of the racecourse. What you normally see is for crew where people sit facing outwards, okay? So I couldn't really draw them, but if you imagine this is like an Impala, so you've got your helmsman, and then everybody else sitting with their legs out and they're looking out, they sort of all tend to look in the same direction, you know, like a drive-in movie or something, right? That's actually not enormously helpful, because if you can give the skipper and the tactician a 360-degree view of everything that's going on the race course, he'll be able to make a better assessment of what the next move should be. So basically, we sort of split it into, you know, normally there's a window in the mainsail about here. So the helmsman or the main sheet can always see that sector and can normally see behind the mainsail and here, and of course always looks in this window from the telltales to the oncoming waves. So giving your helmsman or your tactician any information from those three particular segments is sort of unhelpful, all right? Because you might point out something that he'd missed and he'll feel sensitive and not brilliant, which is bad. Okay? So it'd be better to give him information from somewhere else. So for example, if you're like the sort of second guy from the front, you could probably see bits down here that he can't. So you could give a little bit of input on, maybe to somebody to Leeward who's gauging into you. You can sit on the rail, you have a quick look back, and then hike again, really quickly. If you're this guy here, you can be looking up in this area here. So you can be talking about somebody on your hip, who might have a little extra pressure, and therefore is going a little faster, or there's a little bit of pressure above us, so the tactician might think, all right, let's go to high mode, etc. So that information coming to the decision makers on the boat can come from every single person on the crew. There was a really good article on the Sailing World website recently. It's in here, we'll stick it on the web, about calling the puffs. And that basically is, basically the driver can't see, the main sheet guy can't always see the wind coming down the track because they're focused in that little area of telltales and waves. So knowing in advance what wind is coming down is going to be a big help for them. And there are definite ways of doing this. It's just, for example, the simple rule that it's just as important to call the lulls as it is to call the puffs. All right? If all you do is call the puffs, helmsman's probably going to wonder why it isn't all of a sudden like 100 knots, right? Because it never seems to have dropped again. But tell the lulls so they can power up as well. Thanks, Molly. Okay, so tacking. Right, we do a lot of these in the race, certainly a lot more than jibes. Most important thing in order to execute a really good tack is to make sure that everybody knows that you're tacking. It sounds so stupid, but it's really, really important, especially when it's windy. And if you've got more than like about 4 or 5 people on board, sometimes the guys at the front just don't hear it at all that you're going to tack, right? So do shout it out, very, very loudly to make sure everybody gets it. There are times when it's not right to shout out loudly that you're going to tack. So for example, when you've just come around the bottom mark and you don't want a guy to tack on you, that would be the time to just tack the boat. And if everybody screws up, then you just screw up. Better that than telling the bloke who's going to cover you that you're attacking, because then he'll just slam on you. Okay? But in general, try and make sure the message gets to all the crew. So clear communication on this front. Okay, we're going to do a big roll tack, okay, because the breeze has dropped off a little. Or we're tacking to pressure, so wait up fast after the tack. Something like that, just so that people know how to be pushing off and moving. So, some sort of routine, stand by, tacking, ready about lee-ho, I think was traditionally what I was taught, right? Stand by, the match racers go 3, 2, 1, tacking. So they all get their weight movement absolutely perfect. The one I like, especially on big boats, where you've got one guy going down to uncleat and cut the old jib sheet, and one guy on the high side who's pulling on the new jib sheet, is that whoever's calling the tack goes stand by, the cuttering guy goes down to leeward, and he gets the jib sheet out of the self-tailer or out of the cleat and says ready low, okay, because that's the low side. And the person who's on the high side of the boat who's going to be pulling on the new jib sheet says ready high, and that way you're safe. Okay, you'll definitely not screw up a heavy air tack. if you execute those simple cons. Right? Standby, ready low, ready high, tacking. Okay. You don't have to be at the winch. You know, if you're a confident kind of person and you've done a lot of practice, you can say ready low when you're not there yet, right? But you're definitely going to cop it, right? If it's a mess up, okay? But again, that'll be fine, okay? Woz and I were talking about this beforehand, and definitely one of the issues with especially the 3-2-1 tacking is the fact that, you know, when you're out there tacking in big waves, you've got to time it for a flat bit of, you know, water. So if you go 3, 2, okay, reset, you know, that'll be kind of spuddy. So basically just get ready when you're in the waves. Okay, we're going to tack next flat spot. Everybody ready, 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 ready. Let's go. Boom. Okay. It is very possible that the wind will shift during the tack. Quite often the tactician will say that the wind shifted during the tack, even if it didn't, in a sort of, damn, that was unlucky, you know, kind of way. I mean, I've seen them do it. Aha, seriously. But be alert for the fact that, you know, you roll into a tack and all of a sudden you get what's going to be a lift on the new tack, or there's a little bit of extra pressure, you know, sort of puffs down. In Shelter Cove, this happens a lot where you get gusts coming down onto the water as the wind comes over the hill and bounces. So you're cruising along and all of a sudden you see it's going to be windy, so there might be a shout of quick tack, which is going to be everybody slamming to the high side, you know, as quickly as possible. Or, you know, if you tack and all of a sudden it seems that it's heading and the tack goes really slowly, it's hold the weight, you know, so don't just dive up to the high side because the boat will flatten out too early. Okay? And then something along the lines of smack her down, you know, if the boat comes out too heeled, or if somebody falls over on the way up so the boat heels over, or something like that. So after the tack, do try and get your weight as low as possible. So if you're on the rail hiking, you know, right out there, hiking out. And then, you know, always good, if you can, and if he's that kind of person who responds well to either constructive criticism or questioning, to ask your skipper if he was happy with that, and if he'd like it to be done that way all the time. And for skippers to make sure that you point out what was good or bad during the tack. Any other questions on tacking? Okay, great. You know, one of the reasons, like for example, if you do about 2 tacks pre-start, right? Even if you just do 2 tacks pre-start, proper racing tacks, is really helpful, especially if you've got somebody new on board who may not actually know the way across the boat, right? And you might discover that you've got quite a punchy big bloke on the trim who might have difficulty getting out from under the rail. You know, if you pull your head out first, he might have difficulty moving or something like that. So a couple of practice tacks beforehand will really help.
Jamie, just one thing on that. One thing I've found also helps, might be worth mentioning, is calling the speed out when you finish the tack.
Yeah, for a boat with instruments?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, have the trimmer, you know, as you come out of the tack, basically calling speed falling, right, bottom, and then the speed starts to build again. That sort of concept? Yeah. Okay, so for a Spinnaker set, a bear-away set, that's the vast majority of sets that we do, the simplest rule for somebody on a boat in the crew is to not move unless you absolutely have to. Okay, so if your role in the bear-away set can involve you continuing to hike out on the rail, please do so. Right? Definitely. Because as soon as people come off the rail, the boat heels over. When a boat heels over, it wants to round up. Well, and you're trying to bear away. Okay, so definitely stay on the rail if you can, especially if it's windy. Prepare as early as possible. You know, for A sailboats in particular, where you have to pull the luff out, you know, to the end of the pole. If your class rules allow you, you know, it's quite good to try and do it on your last port tack, right? Because of the fact that if you're on starboard and you're trying to pull the spinnaker out to the leeward side, there's not a lot of room between the jib and the pulpit, right? And it's a real drag for the bag guy to reach around and pull it out. Whereas if you're coming in on the assumption that the last starboard tack isn't going to be too long, like more than 50 yards or 80 yards or so, then on your last port tack in, your bag guy can pop forward and just pull out the tack. So it just lays along by the side, so then you tack the boat and it's trapped in there by the jib. Okay, so preparing as early as possible is fine. Getting the pole onto the mast and the topping lift pulled up. One trick that we always like is to pull the foreguy, right, the pole down haul, pull it down hard, so that when you do the set, the spinnaker pole will not swing all the way back. Right? A lot of times, you know, if the spinnaker pole, the topping lift is obviously on, because otherwise the spinnaker pole wouldn't be up. If you have the foreguy loose, when the kite gets hoisted and the trimmer pulls the guy back, all that happens is the pole just goes out like this, with the guy out to the end of it and then off to the forestay. The spinnaker is somewhere up here. What you want is the spinnaker pole on the end of the spinnaker. So if you leave the foreguy on, when the pole comes back, it'll stop here. And you can ease the foreguy to get it back the rest of the way if you want to. But in general, if you pull the foreguy on sort of roughly hand tight, nothing major, just before the set, it'll come back about 40 degrees, and that's all you need. Open the spinnaker bag, always a good plan. And the main sheet hand ensures that the main sheet is clear to run out. So in other words, off a windshore, definitely out of self-tailor, and down to maybe one turn, or basically whatever you can just about hold for the wind strength that there is. Again, clear communication, bearing away, right, weight in, pre-guy, hoist, jib down. Trimmers immediately start talking, and everybody gets into their normal positions as fast as possible. Just like any mark rounding maneuver, as soon as you've sort of as soon as you've done all the bits of the maneuver that require you to be moving round, stop moving round, right, and just sit down. You can do all the tidying up and everything later on. Obviously, unless it's going to be a disaster, right? I mean, if there's a rope going over the bow or something, that would be good. Okay. So, a jibe. Again, don't move unless you have to, especially if it's windy. Prepare as early as possible. It's a jibe set, yeah, you're right. Okay. So, try to get the tactician to bring you in close to the port lay line, so that you don't have, you know, because otherwise it'll be difficult to put the pole up on a smaller boat. Have the pole ready on the mast if possible. On the actuals you can do this with a jib. On boats with a Genoa, like an Impala, you cannot. Okay. Do not try that. Open the spinnaker bag, make sure the main sheet head is clear. Then you bear away around the mark, weight in, you jibe, and then the pre-guy comes on, hoist, jib down. In a jibe set, the jib and the main must both be properly jibed. Okay, you can't just, you know, sail along on starboard, you know, go to bear away around the mark, and just let the jib go. Because what will happen is when you then jibe and the jib is sort of flapping out there, the spinnaker will be caught underneath it. And even if the head gets out round it, you won't be able to get the guy out enough. Okay? So an easy thing to do is to just you know, do a proper jibe of the jib. So you let it off on the left hand side, pull it on the right hand side. You can actually see it in that in the jibe right at the start of that the TP52 video showing Team Origin. You actually see that they actually pulled the jib over before the jibe on the TPs, right, in an effort to block off the wind that goes through to the kite in the middle of a heavy air jibe so they don't wipe out. One thing that is perfectly acceptable to do, especially in a boat with a jib, not a Genoa, is to just leave the jib on the port side of the boat, right, for a jibe set. So for example, if you were jibe setting a Magic or an Etchells or a J80, right, you could just come around the top mark, bear away, and so long as it's not blowing, you know, 20 plus, you can just leave the jib, clean it on the left-hand side of the boat, and just turn around and jibe and just leave it there. Because that means that the spinnaker has total freedom to come up on the right-hand side of the boat. Okay? So, yeah, simply left on the port side if around 10 knots or less than 10 knots of wind. Okay? Do not hoist the head of the kite more than halfway before the main comes across in the jibe. Okay, so you're bearing away around the mark, you're now perpendicular to the wind, and the over-enthusiastic mastman and pitman have got the spinnaker half hoisted already. That's bad, okay, because all that'll happen is it will twist, okay, turn into a wine glass. So wait until you're dead downwind and the main comes across, before going past 50% hoist. Again, you must have the foreguy pulled on hard to get the pole onto the corner of the kite, so the guy trimmer can pull the kite out from behind the stay. Trimmers start talking, and off you go. Okay, light air jibing. Definitely one of the more difficult of maneuvers. Key thing, again, make sure the message is getting to all the crews, so everybody's prepared. Nice simple communication. You know, big turn or small turn. It's generally going to be a pretty big turn in light air. You know, and then stand by. You know, again, the ready low, ready high is nice and simple. Even though the boat's going to be horizontal, the low one is definitely the leeward side. And then the really important thing is to make sure you rotate the kite. So, a really, really good light air jibe, basically, if you could see it on a video, the spinnaker would not, basically the spinnaker hardly moves. It's the boat that moves around the back of the kite. Okay? So the only way you can achieve that is that as the boat turns, the spinnaker pole must get pulled back. Okay? You can't pull the spinnaker pole back if the foreguy is on, right? The pole downhaul. Okay? So when you're going into a light air jibe, first thing to do is make sure the foreguy is tripped. So then you bear away, and basically it's almost to the point where the sheet is just let go. If you're on an Impala or a Ruffian and you normally sail with the spinnaker sheet around a winch, right, and you go to a light air jibe, it should be off the winch, definitely. Okay, because then what happens is the sheet basically gets let go, and the guy just gets pulled hard as the boat turns, and the spinnaker just sort of goes around the front of the boat. So as you come out on the new jibe, the spinnaker is already all the way around the leeward side of the boat. Okay, that's definitely the simplest way of doing it. Okay, dip pole jibing, you know, same sort of concept, but you know, you cannot trip the pole too early in a light air jibe with a dip pole. Right? You have to wait, because if you trip the pole off before you start the turn, when the guy gets pulled, all that happens is the spinnaker sort of comes into the forestay, right, like this. What you actually want is you want the spinnaker to get rotated round, and then you trip it, and the pole comes off. Once the new guy's in the beak, call made and push it out hard. You know, if you're end to ending, basically there's no mad rush to get it clipped on. The important point is that when you take it off the mast, take it off the sheet, put it on the new guy, you push it forward, down, and out. Okay, so if you can avoid just taking the pole off the mast, clipping it onto the new guy, sort of pushing it out wherever, and then clipping it on, it would be because that way the guy will have a long gap from the end of the pole to the spinnaker. What you want is the end of the pole against the spinnaker. Okay, so you got to push it forward, ram it against the end of the kite, and then clip it on. Okay, again, get your weight low and forward as soon as possible, and get ready for the maneuver and have a chat. I mean, it's really hard to do this. Are there any particular questions about? Everybody no problem with this? Excellent. Okay. Molly, just flick forward about one or two. No, that's fine. Okay, go back. The heavier one. So, light air A sail jibing. Okay. In light air, you're going to be probably inside jibing, right? An asymmetric kite. Okay. So, what you want to try and do is, what you really desperately want to try and do, is to get the spinnaker jibed completely before the main comes across. Okay? If you can achieve that, that'll be fantastic. So, for example, we're going along down here on starboard, and we've got the main out this side, and we've got the spinnaker out this side. We then bear away into a jibe. What we want is we then smoke the leeward sheet, and the weather sheet gets overhauled hard, and the kite comes around this side, sort of like this, and fills, and then we let the boom over. Okay? That's the plan in an A sail. if you don't achieve that, right, there are several reasons for not achieving that. One good thing to do is, as you bear away into the light air jibe, is to have somebody holding the boom out. Okay, that will definitely help. And don't let it over right until really, really late in the game. Having a couple of big guys bouncing the kite sheet back is definitely good. And then if you really don't make it happen, so you've done the jibe and the kite is still hoping to get filled and the boom is already over, don't let the boom out too far. Okay, try and make sure that the boom, the end of the boom, doesn't go much further than the edge of the boat. Right, like might only be 15-20 degrees out off the center line, because otherwise the exhaust off the back of the spinnaker will get clogged by the boom being out, and the leech of the mainsail will be against the leech of the kite while it's trying to get the flow going. Okay, so hold the boom in. Even if it looks crazy over trimmed, it's definitely better. Okay, so heavy air jibing, obviously is much more an issue of survival rather than excellence and maintaining boat speed and stuff like that. Literally in a heavy air jibe, we just want to get it done, do as few of them as possible, and off we go. So let everybody know well in advance, get the communication going clear. It's probably going to take longer anyway, because in the heavy air you've probably got a lot of guys standing at the back of the boat, so therefore they're going to have to move forward to get to their positions to do the rope stuff. So give it a little more time, nice and clear. It's generally going to be a small turn. Okay, stand by, ready, make sure everybody's clear, and off you go. The only thing that is going to be a problem in a heavy air jibe is if you don't keep the boat under the kite. Okay, everything else is going to be fine. So as opposed to a light air jibe where you trip as late as possible, in a heavy air jibe you trip it as early as humanly possible. The kite will still stay out there floating and will not go unstable for at least 3 or 4 seconds, right? Which is more than enough time for the bad guy to trip it on, the new guy to come back, the boom to go over, and everybody to be fine. Okay? So get the pole off as quickly as you possibly can. The sheet and guy probably don't need to be moved, right? In an Etchells or an Impala, for example, when you're sailing downwind in anything from 10 to 25, you can cleat the sheets and jibe the boat. No problem at all. You definitely don't need to move them. If you do start moving, or you see somebody really moving the sheet and guy, you've probably got a problem. Okay? Something's probably about to go wrong. So generally best to have your practice without moving them at all and see if you can pull that off, because it's really easy to not move ropes. So get the main across as early as you can, put an extra body on it to help the main sheet guy or the helmsman or whoever's normally doing it. And then the driver basically has to turn the boat to get the boom across, right, to help the boom get the wind behind it and flick across, and then turn back downwind. Okay, so you could see it in the in the quantum video, and seeing as I need a little break, I'm going to show you that again. The concept of the S jibe. You see just after they make the jibe. Somewhere internet is very slow. I'm not sure why. Okay, so you know, you can turn. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry. You can turn reasonably aggressively into the jibe, just so long as basically as soon as the boom starts to flip across, you head off downwind. If you're end-to-ending, you know, get the pole off the mast as soon as you can. Again, the kite should be able to fly, and the sheet and guy are going to be rock hard because it's windy. So you should be able to just get the pole off pretty straightforward, slip it on and push down. So it should all be fine, and then a huge shout that you've made! And the pole, the sheet and guy will be able to be moved. Dip poling exactly the same. You know, topper gets blown, the beak goes down, the new guy goes in the beak, and then you push it out hard and off you go. And then get the weight back and low as quickly as you can. In an A-sail boat, right, one of the things that's cool about A-sails, there's a lot of things that are cool about A-sails, one thing that's really cool about them is that in the old days, when you were sailing downwind with a symmetric spinnaker and it was really windy, there were two ways to wipe out, right? You could wipe out like that, or you could do a Chinese jibe and wipe out that way. With an A-sail, it's really only that way. It requires unbelievable skill to make an A-sail boat go that way. I'm not actually sure it's possible, although, yeah, you can probably try it. Okay, so therefore, if you prevent yourself wiping out that way, right, in other words, to the weather side, then you've eliminated all the possibilities of wiping out downwind. Okay, and the easiest way to avoid wiping out that way is by blowing the van. Okay, so if you're sailing an A-sail boat and you're somewhere around the middle of the boat and you don't have any specifically designated task, a great thing to do is, as you go into the jibe, get to the van, right? Sort of be holding it, so that as you jibe, right, the guy steers the boat downwind, through the wind, and the boom starts to come across. If he doesn't make the turn, it's possible the boom could just go over and slam, and the boat could spin out. Right? Whereas if you smoke the vang, you will prevent that happening. Okay, so if you're, you know, in a heavier jibe in an A-sail boat, definitely, you know, be alert to blowing the vang early. In a symmetric boat, definitely don't do that. Okay, because you'll just go the other way. Okay. Okay, so a Leeward drop at the bottom mark. This is the simplest of the maneuvers in a symmetric boat and the hardest of the maneuvers in an A-sail boat. So basically try and get set up as quickly as you can. Demand a decision from the afterguard as to what the maneuver is going to be. It's a Leeward drop. Okay. Make sure you know what head sail you're going to be using for the next beat and what side it should be on, so that you can be all set up. Get the spinnaker bag or the bin or the hatch, open up, hoist the jib. So the sheet should be about 25% off from fully trimmed. In an A-sail boat, you probably want the jib off completely. Right? In a symmetric boat, it's not really such a problem unless it's very light winds. But in an A-sail, when you hoist the jib, you should probably have the sheet completely off. And that includes, by the way, the weather jib sheet. All right, we've noticed certainly recently in the practice, because it's been light, that, you know, we hoist the jib, the weather jib sheet, you know, has enough friction that it just completely chokes the slot in the A-sail boat, and the A-sail collapses, which is a disaster. Because with an A-sail, if it collapses and you've got the jib up, your chances of getting it refilled are zero, right? Especially when you're just coming into a bottom mark. Okay, with a symmetric kite, it's not really such a problem. Okay, so get the pole off, and if you have to jibe before the mark, or if you have to tack quickly afterwards, right? The quicker you can get it off, the better. And you know, operate a human guy. All familiar with the concept, right? So you get some big person wearing gloves to stand on the weather side, holding onto the cap shroud, basically leaning out as far as they can with the sheet in their hand, or the guy in their hand, so that the kite doesn't just vanish in behind the general. Okay, so make sure you're clear about who is doing the gathering and how it's being done. Definitely try to avoid a situation where some of the crew think it's a weather drop and some think it's a leeward drop, because then it's just going to go over the front. The guy gets released all the way till the pole is on the forestay, or at least until the spinnaker is behind the headsail. And what should happen at that stage is that the kite should just go. Okay. Doesn't matter how windy it is. You've got the mainsail out there. You've got a jib on, right? If you want to be absolutely certain that the kite goes in there, when the coal goes below the guy for it to go forward, just sheet the Genoa on. Right? If you sheet the jib on or the Genoa on at that stage, you've got the main out. You've got the jib here, and the kite's in this little sort of box behind it, and it's definitely not going anywhere. Okay. Then, as soon as the kite is around the leeward side, okay, you let the halyard go. Do not, under any circumstances, let the halyard go until the entire spinnaker is round one side of the boat. Okay. If any of it is round the weather side of the boat, wait until it's been pulled round. Okay? So, especially if it's windy, the first quarter of the halyard is an explosive release. Okay? So that means that the halyard would come, through the clutch or the cleat and not be on a drum. Right, at all. And so you just get the lever up, stand well back, and, right, and it just completely unloads a quarter, right, and then you snip the clutch closed. Okay, and that'll stop it. And then the rest of the way you can put it around the drum, right, put it one turn around the drum, and you ease it down, to the guys who are gathering it. Okay, so the pit guy is basically the critical person in terms of the drop, because he can prevent it being a disaster. Okay, and then make sure the kite is all in the boat. Main sheet crew starts getting the main sheet on. At this stage, the mast guy is probably spare, so it could be helping, on a big boat, pull in the main sheet, or somebody's probably spare at this stage, and that would be the time to go down to leeward and wind on the leeward primer. Okay, everybody at their normal positions, and whoever is up the front of the boat and has been involved in moving the spinnaker pole down, call that it's cleared to tack. Okay, so the tactician knows that you're good to go. Okay, and then tidy it all up later on. Okay, the windward drop. Okay, again, quite often, windward drops are a very standard situation in a windward leeward because of the fact you come around the top mark, you bear away set, you do a jibe, and you come into the bottom mark, and you sort of want to do a weather drop because then it'll be on the left side of the boat for the next top mark rounding. So it's good to know how to do them and make that tactical decision really easy. So again, get set up as early as you can, hoist the jib. In this case, for the weather drop, hoisting the jib a little early shouldn't really be a problem unless it's super light or you've got an A-sail, because of the fact that the pole should be, the spinnaker should be all the way round, because you don't normally do a weather drop when you're coming in hot to the bottom mark. Okay, so you get the pole off, you human guy, get clear about who's gathering, and the first thing that goes is the sheet. Okay, so not the guy, the sheet. The sheet gets smoked aggressively all the way. Okay, so the kite unloads and the clew comes around the forestay. And for a symmetric boat, the guy gets pulled back until effectively the guys at the front of the boat have got a bunch of the spinnaker in their hand. So you want to get the entire spinnaker around the weather side, and then the halyard starts to go. Okay, so a smoke of a quarter, and then a gentle ease for the rest of it. If it's light airs, you don't have to smoke it. You undo the cleat, probably not a lot's going to happen anyway. So you can just sort of watch it all the way down. Okay, for an A-sail weather drop, on like a J, does a J have a retrieval line? No, you just use the lazy sheet. Yeah, okay. So, smoke the sheet, and the lazy sheet acts as the guy, and you pull it in clew first. For a big boat, you've got a retrieval line. Okay, so you get that set up around the forestay, and that's how you pull it in. You can also do a weather drop on a big boat with the lazy sheet, but it's just better to use the retrieval line if you've got one. Okay, and off we go. So the Kiwi drop. Kiwi drop is a great move, especially in A-sail boats, because it bails out your tactician when you screwed up the ley line again. So the idea is basically that you prepare as early as possible. Generally what's going to be happening here is, if you imagine you've got a mark, so here's the wind coming down this way, and that's our buoy, and you're coming in on starboard, and the plan is that you're going to turn left round it, okay, and go off a beat that way. You know, the standard sort of move would be that you come in and you do, you know, something like a Leeward drop. But to be honest, Leeward drops aren't as easy as a Kiwi drop, right? You could also do a weather drop, but then the kite would be on the right-hand side of the boat, which is probably not what you want for the next set. So the idea of the Kiwi drop is that it starts as a Leeward drop and turns into a weather drop, okay, is the plan. So you come sailing off down here, and you go to bear away, and basically the driver or the tactician need to give you about 2 boat lengths of upwind position. So you come in here, and they bear off till they're downwind, at which point the sheet gets wound on hard, okay, so that the gathering crowd who are along the left side of the boat, now that you're dead downwind, can grab the sail, right, or at least should have the retrieval line already in their hand, or the lazy sheet, right? And the halyard, the tack line, get blown. Okay, so basically as you're going downwind, the kite is in behind the mainsail and sort of comes down onto the deck. Okay, and then as you turn left around the buoy, the very last bits of the kite, you know, are down there on the deck. So you start off gathering it on the leeward side, and then as the boat bears away and jibes, you sort of wind up, jib that over your head, and sticking the rest of the spinnaker down because you're on the weather side, going back upwind. Okay? In light airs, the Kiwi drop is, and it's quite an amazing thing when you see it being done well, because the boat sort of just, it comes along going full chat, probably without even a jib up, and you just come in towards the bottom mark, and then you sort of, you bear away, and as the boat is dead downwind, the kite is right in against the sail plan, right on top of the hatch in the foredeck, and the halyard just gets blown, and the kite just sort of goes just straight down in a pile on the deck, and you can just stuff it away in literally in that length or so that you have at the bottom mark, and then you turn and off you go. Okay. Sometimes also called a Mexican. Okay. Okay. That's it.
Jamie, one question.
Yeah.
On the Windward drop on the asymmetrical, when do you actually release the tack?
I'm pretty happy with it being early on the A-sail boats. It sort of depends. It sort of depends how you're doing it, right? If you're coming in and you're slightly pressed, right, like it's, you know, you've overstood a little, or you know, or it's just that it's pretty windy. You know, doing the weather drop can be a bit of a struggle, you know, to get it round. If you're using a retrieval line, which comes off a patch in the middle of the sail, you blow the tack very early. Very, very early, that's good. But if you're using the lazy sheet, I think you let the sheet go first, and then the tack line. The important thing about the weather drop, and we've certainly discovered this recently because we've been trying it with the pedestal, right, on the 40, is that the halyard goes very late. Right, so the tack and the sheet are less critical. So, sort of what happens is it's almost like creating a Kiwi drop, right? It certainly used to be this way, that a Leeward drop was easy, a weather drop was next, and then a Kiwi drop was this new and exotic thing. Actually, it turns out that the Kiwi drop is the easiest drop you could possibly do. So therefore, the idea of a weather drop is try to make it like a Kiwi. So let's say, for example, you're coming into the bottom mark on port, and you've decided you want to do a weather drop, so the kite's ready for the next set. Okay. What happens is you come down into it, you're blowing sheet, tack, right, or tack, sheet. Which way are we doing it now? Tack, then sheet, right? That's the way we're trying it now? Yeah, okay. I think we're unconvinced yet, but they both seem to work, okay? And the retrieval line, or the lazy sheet, is around the front of the forestay. Then what happens is you wind up pulling like the bejesus on the thing, until you actually get it that the retrieval patch or the clue is round the forestay, and it's actually pretty tight up the leech to the halyard. And what that means is that the kite is sort of down the inside of the Genoa. So all of a sudden it's sort of captive. And when you're the bloke at the back of the boat, as soon as you see the kite on the inside of the Genoa, you start to get a warm and safe feeling that you can turn left without the thing just exploding away. Okay? So I think tack or sheet, the important thing, get it round the forestay, at least a chunk of it round the forestay. If you're pulling on the retrieval line from the Midland sail, then get that, at least that patch has to be round the forestay. And then you can let the halyard down, and it sort of goes down the inside of the jib. Right? Is the way that we've been finding it. Any other specific questions? Okay. Is there anything that anybody would like to particularly go through? Like I say, we've got a lot of stuff. Some people are doing China Sea Race coming up. No?
Yes.
Yes. Anything that might be helpful about crew work on a long race, or we do the sort of maneuvers of inshore racing in general? You want to see pit guy stuff? Do you want to see some videos of some people doing stuff? Okay. You want to see a movie? Have another sequence of the Jibe Peel. So it was good though. Oh really? Yeah, I mean, I don't know, there's loads of stuff here. Jibing with a Spinnaker ball, and tack.
Oh, let's say some A
sails.
Yeah.
You just want to watch boat porn.
That's just a huge magic.
It's just a huge well, to be honest, this one here. Quite interesting to see the guys going upwind in this setup as well. And when you see they're dropping it, you'll see the explosive ditch of the halyard. There's a piece of there's a bunch of drops shown on on Luna Rossa here, which is these guys are great. They stick these little GoPro cameras all over the boat, so you can see the flight. This is practice day of the makeup a couple of years back. Maybe super slow. It looks like Free Fire. It's not. Just took the sheet with him to weather. So when they roll into the tack, you see that the guy, too late. Oh, but the bloke with the hair. There's a bloke with sort of like, bouffant hair. Here, there, yeah. Semi-bouffant. Goes across and he's already got the sheet with him. So in other words, there's no need for any of this ready low, ready high mumble swerve. And then the bloke who brings on the new one just takes it with him and passes it to the trimmer on the high side. Yeah, got it all set up. Okay, the sort of really incredible piece is up back here. It basically shows the first bottom mark. Okay, so they're all coming in now to the bottom mark. Got the heads up already because it's windy enough. Guys are winding the Spinnaker down. The guys on the pumps doing the string drop. You'll see it happen on Artemis, the one behind. That was a Kiwi drop they did there. Artemis behind is doing the weather drop. Quite successfully. As you can notice. Okay, so if we go back to the set, and there are other guys doing a normal leeward drop, you can see by comparison it looks reasonably pants. They are the world champions, but Okay, let's just get back here, and we'll point out a couple of things in the setup.
Sorry, Jamie, what do you mean by winding down?
Okay, the retrieval line is attached. It goes down through the front hatch, and then onto a string which comes up onto the deck.
You're loading that up.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll try and run. Okay, stop. Okay. Okay, so what they have here is that so this is the trimmer, and he's got the sheet right around the primary. The pedestals normally are connected, under the deck to axles and gears that drive this winch. So as he's been going down the run, as they've been going down the run, he's been trimming that, and when he's called for a trim, the guys on the pumps wind it in, and then he ease it out, wind it in. What they've done now is they've disengaged from the primary. Okay, so all he's going to do here is blow this. This is the pit guy. He's got the tack line somewhere in his hand there, and this red rope that's around this is called the bitch winch, right? Because it sort of gets all the tough jobs. This red rope that's around it goes through a lead down inside the boat and up by about the mast, goes around a pulley block, then all the way down to the transom of the boat, and then all the way forward and out the front hatch. Goes out the front hatch, and at the front hatch there's a loop, a spliced loop that you can open and sort of milk closed. And the retrieval line comes down off the spinnaker and has a little knot in the end. It's a little, you know, half-inch sort of thing. And you just stick it through this loop and then milk it closed, so you know it's hard. And the only reason you have that, as opposed to like anything sort of bigger, like a clip or anything, is because it's got to fit through the turning blocks in the system. So these 4 guys on the pumps are now connected to a 1 to 2 retrieval line system, and for every 1 turn of the handles, the bitch winch spins 3 times. Okay? So what you'll see with the multo gearing is you'll actually see this red rope come shooting out to this side. It comes off the winch so fast. So we go 3, 2, 1, and then kaboom. Now they go for, you see the red line shooting out? Right, and it gets wound down on the Kiwi side. Now the Artemis boys, are the guys behind, our mate Brookie. Okay. I mean, it's a joke, right? It's like who shot Roger Rabbit or who framed Roger Rabbit. But the reason that they do it so fast is because down inside the boat, they have a big drum, like about the size of a sort of racing bike wheel. So that, I mean, their leverage, their purchase that they have is like every turn of the handles is 1, or 2 turns of that, which is equivalent to about 10 turns of this bitch winch. And so it comes down.
Just hoovers it up.
Yeah, you sort of wonder, it's so good that you sort of wonder how it ever goes wrong. But it definitely does. So there it's going down the side. It's great, isn't it? Yeah, right. Yes, that's
I guess smoking behind is really important in this game.
I mean, it's. I mean, we've been trying this right for the last month, and it's hard. The timing is really difficult, and the pressure Engage. Check it button down, good man. Did you notice the other little strange thing there? No. Special prizes. Look at the bloke with the new jib sheet in his hand. Anybody notice anything weird about that winch? Look on the right hand side. Where do you see him putting the rope around the winch in a minute? Button down. See, look. What's he doing?
Wrong way around.
The wrong way round. Who said that?
He actually said it.
Bonus points.
It's only because he normally does it that way anyway.
Oh yeah, right.
The Love Boat trophy gets going early.
He thinks I T-boned his boat by accident.
So basically, the winches on the port side of the boat are run anti-clockwise, because otherwise the mold would have to be built asymmetric, so that with the winches sort of stuck out on a bit of a plinth, so that the rope didn't hit the side of the deck. So instead they built winches that turn the other way. which is really expensive. That's why none of us have them.
And never mind getting the crew that's supposed to respond.
I know, seriously. Seriously. You'd be drawing arrows all over the boat.
Oh, you finally got the trouble.
Yeah.
No, all the winches on the port side.
They being Italians, I mean, they are on value or something like that.
They are real. So this guy at the back is coping the main sheet, and the two guys in front are doing the pipe. Now you'll see one clever thing. See the bloke on the left? Anybody know what he's doing? Yeah. So what you do is, obviously one of the disasters in an A-sail boat is if you get the weather sheet over the front of the boat. So on the sides of the patches, up here at the front of the sail, you can see these little sort of bars of wet, hard webbing like this on either side of the tack patch. So what you do is when you throw the jibe, the guy on the old sheet sort of eases it so it doesn't put too much load on the sail, but you hold a bit of tension on it so that when it falls down the sail, it drops into that little catch thing so that it doesn't go off to leeward. So if anybody is sailing an A-sail boat or has experienced the disaster of doing an outside jibe with an old sheet going under the jib or under the pole, a really cool thing to do is just get your sailmaker to stitch on, a couple of those little hook things. Yeah, that's what we call them. Yeah. And that'll stop that ever happening again. Okay, so right, we've got loads. Anything else anybody in particular would like to see?
More of the same, please.
More of the same?
Any twisted spin?
Twisted spinnakers, like a disaster. Really good wipeout. I think a lot of these links, to be honest, are already on the are already on the yacht club website somewhere in a sort of page that says links or something like that. Yeah, it could be. Is everybody surfing the net or something? Oh, shoot. What was that? It's a real spin problem. Or something. That looked good. Real spin problem.
You could probably try that number 30 downwind where they do the really fast one and then wipe out the end.
Is that, yeah. Well, I mean, I know I've got a,
You have that both porn folder now.
this entire laptop is mode porn, We're not watching the goodies now. Sorry. The goodies and the beanstalk. What was this? Close with the cigar.
I'm just going to get video again and talk about, but basically we'll be back in a couple of hours.
This was just a camera. It was quite windy. This was the last day of the UK IRC Nationals this year. This is a King 40.
Well, I don't know what we're I'm supposed to have. That is good sailing. Can we get a bit closer?
Of course it's going. Oh, sorry about that. Right. Anyway. I'm trying to hold the phone. Okay. I'll show you a bit of, okay, right, here you go.
All right. Here's the mighty antics in there, the second run. Tony Murphy, look at that work rate.
That's the best part. Sorry.
Honestly, they're like a bunch of lads smoking outside his club. But you know, in fairness, I mean, they work so hard.
That's pathetic effort to dig my way out. Using my mates from Cork. Alright, so this is it. Look, that was what the weather had been like, right? That beautiful stuff up there. And it's blowing about 20, 22 at the moment. Right, this was top boat Commodore's Cup last year, basically won everything, a Kerr 39.
The wall of big monster boys.
And it goes, yeah, it's a great wipeout. Right, there's a tiny little hole in the kite as well.
Yeah, crikey.
There's surfing there.
Yeah, just about. Yeah, it's very windy here.
That kite's not going to survive. How on earth is that kite surviving?
Bet on after.
That's big steering, yeah, that is epic. This is the biggest pressure we've felt all weekend. Whoa!
Yes!
You didn't hang around, did you?
So So disasters are good. Are they going to see some more disasters? I'm sorry, Ned. Let's dig it up here. Oh, yeah. Ah!
Right, here's a FAR 52 coming into the bottom mark with everybody else.
They managed to set the courses that all the classes reconvened at the same point.
Lots of boats here. Where are they going? Oh, impetuous disaster. Oh, Anna dives for the inside. Is there room? Oh, Leary tacks. Bob trolls. Oh, it's carnage. You look good, lads. It's mayhem. Look at that. Oh, this is the one. Oh, no, this one's impetuous.
The funny thing is that, no, it's not. But when you see it looks like sort of Jaws in a second.
Look, the two fellas with the North Sailmakers on board are shredding kites. Look at that pipe! Oh, that's the best. It looks like Jaws. Look that's amazing.
It's not on YouTube, is it?
No, it's of course it's not on YouTube. That would be appalling. Yeah, these boys go along really well. They managed to keep it going for about 3 minutes in the puff, and then I think around there it starts to go pear-shaped. So if you can bear the side-on look for a second, it is quite good to see how a white.
Gonna make a jibe. Whoa!
Good hit.
Oh! He's the guy. 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 Well, that was some of the best sailing I've seen. That was brilliant.
They were amazing. They were in 16 knots down that leg until they wiped out. Okay, we've got lots of other stuff. Anything in particular? The wheel spin problem we were looking for? I just don't know what's happened to the web is the problem. Serious wipeout? It's going to be a washing machine, isn't it? I honestly didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't. Sorry. Kenmore. Oh, rats. I think the easiest thing is to go TP52s. That's what all the stuff is. If you actually just go to the MedCup site, they've got all these amazing scenes. There's a great one of them going into the, oh yeah, this is the one where they showed the Kiwi drop. I think, where they show you a fellow coming into the bottom arc, he's getting ready to do the string drop, and they take the load on the retrieval line just a hint too early, and they pull the patch out of the middle of the sail, and then just at that moment they go for the smoke of everything, so they smoke everything, but lose it completely, and it wraps around the mast of a guy who's just gone around the mark. Yeah, very exciting. I think, yeah, this is the Hunter Boys training. I think they show a couple of other drives and stuff here. Oh, that's fun. So basically trying to get the kite all around. You see the main does not get let out. Notice that? So there's the exhaust, the gap for the exhaust, right? And then they ease it as soon as the kite's full and away. The other thing that was noticeable there, you could see Ado Stead, the tactician. He's an unusual tactician in that he's allowed to touch ropes. You see, he's got the vang in his hand. Shoes on his wrist. Sorry about that. He's got the vang in his hand, and as the boom comes over for the jibe, right, he finishes off with the runner. Has a quick look, sees the battens haven't popped, bends down, and goes hard on the vang. Because if the full-length battens haven't popped in your main, the easiest way to get them to pop is by just winding hell out of the vang. And the top battens will go from being inverted to being correct. You also notice how hard they move their crew weight there after the, see everybody piling up and actually hiking out over the rail after a light air sail drive.
They're trying to roll it there. They're trying to get something.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the more apparent you can try and kick into the kite by pulling the rig over on top of the boat, the better it's going to work out. Pretty simple little string drop. There's a Leeward. That's sort of feeding it down and just vanishes down there. All looks so easy. Jibing asymmetrical, that's a serious one.
Kiwi 725 operated by PGA 2.
How can we keep it clean and dry up there? You found them, so that come out really well.
Part of our strength in the past has been that we've had the same bunch of guys for 2 years in a row. So the afterguard chemistry is a very important part of sailing. So we do have 2 new afterguard team members, Kevin Hall and Adrian Stead. It's a good team and equal to the 2008 team at 7. Then a couple of points left in the last race, but a very solid day. Tricky day out there, and it's we did a lot of things right. The wind was setting, the boat was great. We were going quick. We had good starts, and very good. We were 1 point behind with 7 to play.
Really impressed. Came from North Atlantic Quantum, as well as teams working together as quantum teams. And we've got the system here. The sails are obviously the engine of the boat, so we're happy with the quantum sails. And
On the Med Cup site, they actually have every single race from the last 3 years, full coverage available, including the virtual eye. So, if you're ever looking for a resource to actually see how to sail an A-sail boat, or sail any boat upwind, it really is quite amazing how they do it. There's times when they, for example, they put a mic on the kite trimmer, on, I don't know, I can't remember what boat, I think it was Ribbon. And it was just fantastic that the commentators just shut up for like 5 minutes down a quite light air run. And you can just hear the helmsman and the tactician and the trimmer just talking all the way down about how they're dealing with it. Pressure on, leads, blah, blah, blah. Just working the boat down. It's fantastic. Huh? Oh yeah, that's great. Look at this.
Pretty close, this is very close, it's too close.
We misjudged the situation where we're fighting for second and third place with Leeward, and they seem to be not very decided if they want to attack Leeward of us or tossing.
3 golds and a silver, right?
And obviously attacking to gold, we got too much help. In the end. There's 2 vedettes, both lost a very good place this race, and I think
by the end of the 2009 winners of Emirates Team New Zealand had earned enough of the points cushions to be unbeatable in the series, making them the first team ever to win back-to-back 40 match.
It's a bit like housekeeping.
It's just a fantastic feeling for the guys to have it done with 3 days to go. I think it's been an incredibly tough season, harder than last year, but
cheers, Ron. Love so.
Yeah, it's
right. What I'd suggest is we'll stick all these links on the web. Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask, or we can answer before we wrap it up and head home? No? Okay. Well then, thank you all for coming, and we'll stick it as much as we can on the website.
Thank you, Jamie. Please do help yourself to another drink as well.